Well, it's Wednesday morning here for your NBL Now, all thanks to Code Sports, the home of NBL coverage. And well, I've got the great man who I haven't seen since we were doing a Kashi together, actually, a couple of months ago.
You don't like that, did you?
Chris, thanks for jumping on, man. How you doing?
I'm doing really well. I'm excited that the NBL started. I'm looking forward to the NBA, but everything is good.
It's there's a lot to talk about. Obviously, it's been a massive few days in the NBL landscape. It's been a massive few months in the NBL landscape. Before we touch on some of the big things that have been making news, let's just talk really the last 6 months for you. When you think about everything that's happened, has transpired in the NBL world with players moving, everything that's happened, what's one thing that comes to your mind straight away?
Just that we're global, and I think Australian basketball continues to be relevant on a global stage, and that doesn't mean we're always successful, but we're relevant. From the guys we've got playing in the NBA to the girls who are doing exceptionally well in the WNBA, we're starting to see the level of talent we're bringing into Australia, and we can digest in person here continually improve. And I think that's exciting. And I know we haven't started talking about this NBL season yet, but already you see the background and what we can expect of some of these new crop of imports. And it is exciting because there are a lot of new names, and can't wait to see whose games suit and whose don't.
Well, that's something I do want to talk to you about, because we always do see big name players come in, and sometimes they don't always adapt to the NBL because it is different. But let's talk about a couple of big headlines in recent days, and especially yesterday and the day before. But Code Sports has had a sit down and chat with Bryce Cotton, who is now officially Australian. For all those who missed it, he had his citizenship ceremony last Wednesday. So he is an Australian citizen. But talking about the Boomers in particular, doesn't really give off the feel that he wants to play. I understand there's been a lot of talk. Originally he did and everything that transpired. What do you buy into that? Because firstly, would he make the team? He'd have to make the team.
I think he would, especially with Paddy and Joe both being 39, and unsure if Tyrese Proctor's ready to go at that level, but he probably will be in 6 years, or he definitely will be in 6 years' time, I think. Would he make it go? I think somebody who can score the ball like that, especially now that I would still believe that Dyson Daniels is selected over Matisse Thybulle, so Bryce would become that one naturalised player. He's very familiar with the Australian style of game. I think he'd fit into the team, whether or not he wants to or not, and whether or not you select a 35-year-old for his first Olympic Games, or whether, in fact, he wants to play. They're all interesting questions, but what will he do? I think that's really going to come down to a conversation that I'm sure Adam Capon, the Boomers head coach, will have with him at some stage. It is an interesting one. There's a part of me that would love to see him in a Boomers uniform, especially if the more scorers you can put alongside Josh Giddey, it's just exciting. And anytime you've got Josh Giddey, Dyson Daniels, Jock Landale, I think you're going to be competitive in most games. So we're certainly not in a rebuild stage where we need to bring in a bunch of young guys just yet.
We talk about the Boomers culture, the legacy, everything that's been a part of the national program. Even if we're getting this sense from Bryce that maybe he's not interested right now, if you're Adam Capon and hearing what you're saying, are you basically saying, you know what, we're going to keep on you about this. We'll see how you feel when it comes around to the next camp? Or is it going as far as saying, hey, come into camp, see how you feel, don't just turn this down now before it all starts? Because obviously, as you said, we'd love to have him in a Boomers jersey.
I think the more people you can bring into camp as a new coach, the better, no matter who they are, whether it is the young kids or whether it's Bryce Cotton. And again, I don't know Bryce's family situation. I don't know what he does in the off seasons. I don't know if he, and I don't want this to come out the wrong way, feels Australian. And that would be a big part of it as well, I would imagine, representing a country that, if he believes he's very strongly American, although he has Australian citizenship, I don't know. So we'll find out pretty quickly. I'm sure the conversation will continue. I believe that if he wants to play, I think he'll get picked, at least in some lead-up tournaments, to see how he goes.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating couple of years. Again, it's just awesome to see that he is an Australian citizen now. The Adelaide 36ers are very happy. I know the checkbook, the salary cap part of it is just one part of it, but obviously he isn't a local, and I believe he's a local for years now, obviously everything that went on. But Another big name star we've been talking about for a couple of days, a couple of weeks now, is Ben Simmons back in Australia. The talk of potentially retiring from the NBA. Larry Kesselman, speaking of Code Sports, saying that he'd love to have a conversation and help him reignite that passion in the NBL. Would you love to see that?
No, I wouldn't. I don't think Ben loves basketball. I don't think that what his expectations of an NBL team would be able to be fulfilled by an NBA team when he's become accustomed to a certain type of lifestyle and extravagance around that. I can't see Ben wanting to fly commercial nor make some of the sacrifices that you have to be a part of an NBL team. We're not the NBA. Again, we're globally recognized, but we're not the NBA. There are some adjustments that need to be made, and there are other players who I know that clubs have spoken to over the last couple of years, and that's been one of the determining factors to them not being able to come, because they don't want to be treated like everybody else. They still see themselves as slightly above everybody else, and my gut feeling is that's how Ben would see himself.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a very different lifestyle here in Australia. Obviously, flying everywhere the way they would do it. From a basketball standpoint on the court, if we remove that, which is a very big factor, Damon Lowry said that he would dominate in the NBL. Do you think that the way that he's played, the way that we've seen him at his very best, the way that the NBL is, because again, I'm going to talk about it with this after, it's a very different playing style here than really anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, it is. Look, he can't shoot the ball. He's going to get fouled a lot. Would he dominate? Absolutely not. I think that's disrespectful to so many players in this league who are able to score the ball in a multitude of ways. He's a very big guard who can handle the ball, or he's a very small, big, but I don't think he would want to come and do that. My biggest thing becomes, as a teammate, do you want to turn up and see Ben Simmons every day at train? And if the answer is no to that, how can you possibly become successful as a franchise, no matter how talented the player on your team? And I was listening to Geelong, Brian Cook, the Geelong CEO, I believe it was, and then he was part of Carlton, and he said, yeah, they recruit the personality, then they teach the skill. Now, granted, Ben has an exceptional skill set and you can't teach what he does, but there's got to be such a huge importance if you're on a team. I could never see someone like Melbourne United or the Sydney Kings bringing Ben in. Yeah, their culture is too strong for that.
Yeah, it's a great point. I think it's someone when we started to see those reports and everything in the news about it, potentially and what it could look like, you're just looking at it from a basketball point of view. But that's why we get you on, man, because you've been around for a long time. I do want to talk about it now then, because you mentioned there the play style adapting, and we've seen it, guys who come in, Americans who have played in the NBA, doesn't matter how many games you've played, guys who have played over 300, 400 games, and it just doesn't always translate to the NBL. Now, we're going to get our first look this weekend of the Illawarra Hawks and the 36ers. So, JaVale McGee, the three-time NBA champion, comes in. One, what did that mean to you when you saw that kind of signing from the champs? And then how do you think he's going to go?
I think he's going to have a pretty significant adjustment period to the way the game's officiated. He's used to being very physical. I don't think anyone would argue that he's the highest IQ player they've ever seen. I don't think they'd argue for that. So I think the ball's going to zip around a lot more than what he's used to. He's not going to be able to just load up on the split line and play help defense and meet everything at the rim. I think there's going to be an adjustment to the international style of play. I would almost bet my bottom dollar he'll foul out one of the first 2 or 3 games. But geez, that level of athleticism and size and finishing at the rim and hands in passing lanes and highlight reels, I think he's going to be great for this league, but give him a month. What a replacement for Sam Froling. I was devastated when Froll snapped that Achilles, and to bring JaVale McGee into an already exceptionally talented team, I think they've got the right crew around him to continually educate him as to what this league requires. But I think the biggest one for him is going to be the physicality, the refereeing, adjusting to that. And once he does that, I think you'll probably find he'll be one of the most dominant big men at the league's seen in quite a few years.
Do you think that's the biggest part of adapting is the officiating style? Because again, when Andrew Bogut came back playing for the Sydney Kings, it almost seemed like the referees understood, this is one of the best players in his position that we've seen in the world. And when he plays, it's going to be very different to when other local young bigs coming through, and you kind of have to officiate that differently, because that's what I want to see from JaVale too. I don't want to see him foul out. I want to see him at his very best doing what the things you just mentioned, but sometimes that can be harder to do in a completely different league, in a completely different system.
We need to allow athletes to be athletes. We can't be disadvantaged for being stronger and bigger than everyone else, and that's what JaVale McGee is. You're right, when Andrew Bogut came back, my greatest fear was that we would continue to officiate bigs in the NBL the way we had for the decade before, and we'd see one of the greatest basketball players this country's ever produced hobbled by the way the game's officiated. But I do think that the NBL took a step in the right direction when Bogut came back. And I think they've been pretty good. I mean, probably the deafening silence to a large degree. We haven't heard too much conversation around the officiating, and that's a good thing, because 5 years ago there was. So I think the officiating's continue to improve. I think it can still continue to improve when we invest more into it. But JaVale McGee is going to be another litmus test like Bogut was, is how we're going to handle this superstar coming into our league, because we need to highlight his strengths and not reward Jesse Wagstaff every time JaVale goes near him and he falls over. We can't reward flopping. We need to reward the athletes and the aggressive players in this league.
Yeah, you're spot on. I can't wait to see JaVale McGee. The Hawks are in action this week, obviously fresh off playing in Singapore. We also get our first look at the Adelaide 36ers, and now there's reports out there now, obviously, with what's happening with Montrez. But the 36ers as a whole, what the team they have, even without Montrez as part of this roster, and the flexibility to add some more pieces, I'm excited to see what they're capable of. How do you view the Adelaide 36ers?
With caution, we know who Bryce Cotton is, but we know who Bryce Cotton is in the Perth Wildcats system. When John really came in, we saw Bryce struggle under a new system until he adapted. So I think, again, like we've just mentioned for JaVale, there's going to be a period of adaptation for Bryce. New system, new city, new coach. And the thing when your salary becomes public knowledge and people attach an expectation to that expectation comes about every single game in a new town. But I'm fascinated to see what it's like. I'm fascinated to see what Chetham's like, because at the end of the day, New Zealand didn't want him after half a season. And I wonder why. Will he be different in Adelaide? Better, worse? What's he like off the court as well? Montrezl Harrell's not coming back. As many highlights as we got from him, geez, he didn't try on a lot of possessions, and that's got to be addition by subtraction. If they can bring in a hard-working, complementary big, especially as we've mentioned now that Bryce is an Aussie, it doesn't have to cost that much. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they are. I'm looking forward. It's going to be weird seeing Bryce Cotton in a 36ers uniform, but G didn't perk missing in round one. No, excited to see Adelaide.
Yeah, I think it's going to be sold out. It's going to be crazy. I know the tickets have gone nuts at the 36ers for good reason. Mate, we could talk about a lot of things, so I'll open the floor to you for the last question, because I've got here, we can talk about Kendrick Davis in Sydney. It's going to be fun to see the Sydney Kings. We know they played in the PGT last weekend, but the throwdowns on Thursday night as well, Melbourne versus Southeast Melbourne. There's a lot to look forward to this weekend. Out of anything I've said there, is there anything that pops to your head of like, yep, this is what I'm going to be sitting on the couch ready for?
Well, I'm going to the game. I'm going to the throwdown, and I'm looking forward to. I thought when they signed him that Finn Delaney was an exceptional signing for Melbourne United, and I think he's been really fantastic in the first two games. Granted, the second game everyone played 20 minutes in that route, so I'm looking forward to seeing him in person. Bryce Hamilton, I think, is the guard's name from Tasmania, who I've been very impressed with in their first two games. Tasmania had their good win in Perth. They played United very close. There's some excitement about that roster as well. You know what? I can't wait to see all the different new players in this league in person. It's one thing seeing them on TV and the access we've got's great, but I'd encourage everyone to get down and have a look. Especially when you get players in this league maybe for one season. There's a lot of Australian fans who might only ever get one chance to see JaVale McGee play in person. So when he comes to your town, or when Bryce Cotton comes to your town, go and have a look. It's really high quality and completely different in person.
And after that, if you're close enough, just get down to Hotel Trentham and enjoy it after, because I know there was some celebrations there the other couple of weeks. Mate, we're going to get you on a whole lot more this season because it's been fun. We don't get to hear from you too often now, so this has been a whole lot of fun. Enjoy the throwdown, and we'll chat soon.
Cheers, Holz.
Thanks, everybody. Don't forget, Code Sports has your NBL covered like no one else. Expert analysis, insider access on and off the court. Head to codesports.com.au today. Enjoy your Wednesday.